Hello, my loves. It is I, Rocket Fox, and I am embarking on something a little bit new that I've been thinking about doing for a while. But as of late, I've been getting more questions about some of my makeup looks. So I thought, why not start now? And I had a question about a particular badass eye makeup look. And so I thought, let's do it. So here we are. I am going to be taking you through start to finish a badass eyeshadow makeup look, and the rest of it kind of just following suit for one of my basic eclectic witchy looks. And here we go. But to start off, I always start with a little bit of coffee, but make sure you stay hydrated. Coffee's not really a hydrator, but it helps keep me going. So, all right. So, I start with, you always want to start with making sure your face is clean. Put a moisturizer on there, and I put a little bit of spritz toner on there as well. So now that we have a nice fresh canvas, we're ready to go. So I don't use foundation because I have kind of sensitive, I'm a little bit sensitive, and I find that fortunate, thank you so much, Mom. I don't normally need to, but I do use concealer, and I've been using lately this Be Bright from Koki Professional, and I got this in one of the Ipsy bags, monthly bags, and yeah, I actually really like it. I like it a lot. It blends really well, and it miraculously matches my tone really well as well. And I've got medium beige for myself, so let's get started with that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place on any uneven spots, which a lot of you will know this from knowing yourselves and your own bodies, but the hormones change at different times during the month, and this goes for those of more testosterone biology as well as more estrogen biology. Pretty much everyone across the board. Everyone has hormones. They're always a changing. So that will affect what your skin is doing. So there's no reason to feel bad about what your skin is doing. There's different types of products, different types of skincare that you can use based on what your own natural biology is. And it's just a matter of kind of finding those things. And for myself, I have, I cannot tell you how many products I've tested out. Even things like concealers, foundations, things like that some will cause my skin to get, a little more oily. Some will cause me to break out, and things like that. And you just have to kind of test and see what works for you. But once you do, I stick with that like glue. So get that going. And the nice thing too about having so much dynamic color is that really the overall regular canvas doesn't need too much, because the eye is normally drawn away by how much is going on elsewhere. So now that we have that, I always start with the eyes. I find that's kind of my main focus. So I am going to start off this badass eye look with a little bit of, we're going to add a little bit of pinkish tone back behind there. Nothing too, I've been doing a lot of really bright pinks lately, so it's going to be a little more subtle than that. Subtle. So the brush I use for my base tone of eyeshadow tends to be more of this, I'll be honest, I'm very much self-taught in makeup, so I don't know the technical names for these brushes, but it's kind of this shape. It's a little bit of a fluffy brush, and what that does is it causes a nice soft tone. It's not very sharp, it's not, but it's not too soft, right? So there's a pretty condensed amount of bristles, as you can see there, but it's of a decent size. So now what I have here to start with, we have the Morphe palette, which I've generally liked pretty well, and this is, I believe, yeah, Boss Mood. Mood? Yeah, Boss Mood. I was either Boss Mood or Boss Mode. Either one is great. And I really like the colors in this. I've never actually taken the plastic out, so every time I open it, I have to maneuver around there. The colors work well for my palette. We've got a lot of greens, reds, purples, but today we are going to start with this kind of a little bit of this darker reddish purple, and this is why I leave the plastic. Technically, it is called Power Slayer. So we're going to start with Power Slayer so we can slay the power. So you will take this with your brush and get going on your eye. And so what I like to do is I start on the base here. See how I'm doing that there? Start on the main part, and that's where you're going to want the bulk of your color. So start building up your color on your eyelid closer to the lash line. And then as you use up your color, allow the brush to float outward. So a little bit of that lighter color starts to drift outward, allowing it to fade as it moves on out. And again, the amount of color that I end up using, it's a lot. All right, so you'll see we start having a nice base of operations here. And one other thing you'll see that I started doing is pulling the color up kind of along the temple line here. And it's not totally blended. We have some other colors we're going to use for that, but we have a nice color foundation for that eye. And at this point, we are going to head on over to the other one. All right, so as you can see, we're starting to get pretty nice color tone on both sides. And what you'll notice here also is that there's a little bit of differentiation between right here, there's a little bit darker right there, and here where I'm not getting quite as dark. That's ultimately not going to matter because we're going to darken up the space right above the So what you'll notice as we get a nice color tone on the other side here is that right here, we're not totally even. See, we have a little bit of a darker spot right here than we have over on this side. And what can account for that is there might have been a little bit of a difference in the moisturizer on one side to the other. There might have been a little more setting in of, primer can really help even things out. That is why you want to use it when you have a good one, things like that. Ultimately, this is not totally going to matter. We're going to darken both of these spaces up right above the eyelid. So not a huge deal right now, but something good to take note of when you're going through this process. All right, so we're going to move on to the next color here. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to move on to this little bit of this brighter red here. And technically, the technical name for it is FOTD, photo of the day. So we're going to take that, and now, while technically on your brushes, you always want to make sure you clean your brushes after you're done using them, and you want to start with clean brushes. That's really going to help you, you know, as you want to start with a clean canvas, you want to start with clean brushes. While I'm in the process of doing a makeup look, I actually will tend to use the same brush for a few different colors. And what I use is I have a matte that looks kind of like this. So I'm showing you the back just because I don't really have a reason for that. It has these little kind of sticky things that help it stay down. The front is really what matters. So you'll see it has this kind of almost waffly texture. It is a brush cleaning mat. And so between colors, I will take my brush and I'll just like do one of these things. And that helps, you know, remove a color while I'm in the process of doing makeup. But again, after you're done with the look, you're going to want to make sure to clean all your brushes really thoroughly. Now you may be wondering, oh, but Fox, why not clean the brush between every color? And my answer to you would be, it already takes me a very long time to do my makeup, and that would make it take even longer, and I just do not have that time. But if you want to do that, more power to you. So we're going to take this red and we're going to take and start to put it along the upper and outer edge of where this purple is. So see how that starts to brighten that area up? And for this, notice how my application, I'm just dabbing it on there. And bring it around to the front. And bring it up to the side. Follow that temple line. Now, something to note here, I like to accentuate the structure of my head by going up at an angle, and that will help kind of sharpen your face shape. The other thing to note as well, go with your face shape, right? I follow your structure. That is going to be the thing that looks good on you, and you can accentuate the structure that you have, and it's going to look really good. And there's always ways to play with that. You know, there's contouring, there are things like that that can really play with the structures that you have. You know, and even though I do a lot of different colors and crazy things, you know, playing with the structure and the shape that you have is going to be ultimately what really brings out your uniqueness. All right, now that we have that, we're going to close up Boss Mood for a second, and we're going to move on to the eyeliner. Now, I'm very particular about eyeliner because I have the Asian style of eyelids, which is otherwise known as the Mongolian fold. I have not in daily life heard another term for that. So it's kind of the underfold, right? A lot of people where their eyelids fold, they fold up here and they have a crease kind of up here. You'll notice that where my eyelids fold, they fold under. And you'll notice that with a lot of more East Asian folk. So where that affects makeup is that a lot of times with eyeliner, the skin rubs, right? So it will cause eyeliner to rub off and not really stay put. So I need an eyeliner that's going to be very fierce in its stay puttery. So I found one that I really like, which is the NYX or NYX retractable eyeliner, and that I found is one that 100% of the time stays where I put it, which I really, really like, because it is otherwise a trial. So I will go out of my way to get this. And it also comes off relatively easily when I'm trying to get it off. But it also it is waterproof, weep proof. It's pretty good. So the other place where the eyelid style comes into play is that a lot of times for eyeliner, people will be able to have a really thin line, and I'll actually show this to you. So if I'm to do just an eyeline right above where my lashes are here, you'll see how I'm doing this. And even that's not super, super subtle, right? Like if you were doing an actual natural look. So we've got, you can see that right there. And you'll notice as soon as I like open my eyes, gone. You can see it a little bit right here, right kind of at the end, but otherwise there, gone. Magic. Which again, for the looks that I like to do, I want something bold and poppin'. So I normally will have to do pretty thick eyeliners, lines to make them actually really show when my eyes are open. So you'll see that as I get going too. So I'm going to take this, and I find it to be very helpful holding the skin a little bit more taut. The skin around the eyelid is a little more flexible, obviously, because your eyelids open and close. Also, in my case, age kind of causes things to get a little more loose. So some of you may say, but Rocket Fox, you're so young. And you know, age is all very comparative. I am no longer as young as I once was, and still comparatively young to how old I eventually will be. So and you'll notice for me too, something else I do is I actually pull the skin this way a little bit to get down into that little pocket on the inner corner of the eye. So we get a nice even curve. So you'll see that, you know, when I have my eye closed, that is a wide swath of black. But when I have it open, you know, it's much less of it's noticeable, but it's much less crazy amounts of eyeliner. So that's generally what I do. So we're gonna keep going with that, and then as we get over here, it's time to do the wing. So what I'm gonna do for this is I like to take and have this follow the color swath going along the temple here. So again, I pull this to kind of make the canvas a little easier to draw along. So I'm going to take, and I'm just going to trace up along here. And then kind of at the corner, I'm going to come down and just close that triangle. And what I'm doing with the pencil is, as I get towards the outer corner, I just gently lift it. And that helps it to create this nice point. And if it helps you by having the pencil be a little sharper, you can get a little sharpener for this small retractable thing, or you can actually take something and just kind of basically are drawing with it, but forming the end into a point. Here we have one side, and now we're going to do the thing that I probably dread the most in all of this, which is the other side, because matching both sides is what I have the most trouble with. But we're gonna try. And for you, I'm gonna try really hard to get it the first time. Same method, pull the skin and just, what I do is I try and just look at both sides a little bit while I'm going. So I start lower to get the shape going, and then I'll draw the circle, or the semicircle rather. And as a lot of people, my eyes are not totally even. And then I'll take a break and I'll look at both and be like, okay, that's looking good, that's looking good. And you want to look at them at rest too, because again, one of my eyes opens a little bit more than the other. So what it looks like when it's open, which is how most people are going to see it, might be different than what it looks like when it's closed. What it looks like when I'm looking regularly, eyes open, is what I want it to look like. So that's actually looking all right so far. We're gonna keep going. So thus far, looking pretty even. I like where that's going. The really hard part is getting both wings to be the same. So here we go. Here we go. Okay, so it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like to thank all of you for being here, because I'm pretty sure that's why it worked out. And I think one of the good things to do as you're going through this process and doing it more and more is just to be aware of what your tendencies are. So for myself, whenever I do the left side, I tend to want to go a little bit lower. So I bear that in mind whenever I'm doing it, so that I'll try and purposefully make it curve a little bit higher, just a little bit, because I know that I'm wanting to make it go lower. So now that we've done that, I'm actually going to take and do the lower side on both. And so for this, I take and I pull the lid down, and I'm actually going along the lash line. So I'm actually going along the lash line, and I'm going on the kind of inner lip of the lid. Now you want to be very careful with that, because you do not want to poke yourself in the eye, and you do not actually want to put this in your eye either. So you want to go draw along the lash line, and that will put it where you want it to be. And as we go, you kind of reach the inner corner here and then stop. Don't draw on your tear duct. That will make you very sad. All right, so the bottom looks really stark right now, but again, we'll be blending that, so fear not. So at this point, what I also do with the liner, we're going back to our Morphe palette here, I have a little small brush like this. It's thin but wide, so not quite a fan, because it doesn't totally fan out, but a little bit like that. And at this point, there's a black shadow over here called Black Magic, and I use that and I go over where I just lined. And for me, that helps to set the liner, but it also helps to even out in case there's any little spots that are uneven with the liner color itself. But also, after we do that, we're going to take and start to blend it upward a little bit. So you're going to take this, make sure you get some color on there, and then right at the line here where your eyeliner is, start stippling and dabbing it along there. And you can see how that black color is starting to blur a little bit of that eyeliner line. And you want to concentrate most of the color right where that eyeliner line is. Again, like we did for the very first color, as you start to use up the black on the brush, gently work your way up higher so that it blends upward. And every time you put more color on there, again, concentrate it right by that line, because that's what we're trying to soften. So you can see now the difference between the two sides. This one has a nice dark blend here, more of an ombre. You know, I don't think I've ever really, not important. So this one has more of this blend going, and this side is really stark. Both sides work. We would want to do something else on this side if we were going to keep that line really sharp like that, because it still has a bit of an unfinished feel to it, but this is what we're going for today. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to move back to this brush, and surprise, this brush is actually a two-ended brush, so it really doesn't matter if you're moving back to this brush or not. What we're using is the other end. It's kind of like the brush we used for the black, but it's bigger, and the bristles are longer, so you can get a much more soft sweep with it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some dark purple, and that color is called Transformer. Not sure if it's the electrical type of transformer or the Optimus Prime kind, but it's this color here, nice dark purple, and that is going to add just a little more dynamic to what we have going on. So we're going to add it to the brush here, and over where you have this blend of darkened into the red, we're going to add that purple. And it's okay if that goes down onto the liner. As with some of these others, as the color gets used up on the brush, blend it out. And you see it just adds a little more dynamic. So we're going to do that to the other side. With makeup, as with illustration and painting and things like that, you generally don't want to stick with one color exactly. So if you're using reds, you'll want to blend another color in there to help bring out a little more dynamic. And I keep using that word, but that's kind of the best word I can think of for it, because, you know, nothing in the actual world is just one straight color. So the more you bring out other colors, the more it'll make that pop. So there we have this. And now we're going to add a little bit of highlight into there. So for that, I've generally used the Too Faced Love palette. So I, for this, have this little brush that I use. It's kind of like the one I used for the dark purple, but just a little bit smaller. And for this, I use just a little bit of a shimmery, hair bit lighter than flesh tone color. And again, I've been using this palette, but any that falls into this category I think would work for that. We're going to use something else for the highlight. This is just kind of to get that area a little bit shimmery. So we're going to kind of just pat this color up here at the very top, right by the eyebrows. And then we're also going to take and add a little down here at the inner corner of the eye. All right. And that is all we're using that for. It is a fun palette though. I've gotten to the point where I'm using colors that are a little brighter than what that offers, but it's a nice palette. I do like it a lot. So next up, we're going to start on the bottom half of the eyes. So for this one, we're actually going to the Beauty Glazed Perfect eyeshadow. Don't think I've actually ever read that before. It's a nice palette though. We've got, it's the Perfect Mix eyeshadow. Anyway, so it's the Beauty Glazed Perfect Mix eyeshadow palette. And it's a nice pinks variety that we have here. And so for this, I'm going to use what we used for the dark purple, and I'm going to be using Bisque, which is kind of this, it's a little bit of a pinkish color, but it's almost like a light salmon kind of. Some might even call it a bisque color. So we're going to take this and we're going to start just doing it underneath the eye. And you want to concentrate the color at that eyeliner line and then start pulling it down a little bit. And this we are going to work all the way along this color line that went on the temple. So this is actually going to follow the cheekbone. And now to help blend down this eyeliner, we're going to go back to our Boss Mood palette and we're going to take a little bit of this black on our black color brush and take and start just running that along the lower lid line. And then you can see already that that is much more blended than the other side. Okay. Now, you'll notice that there's still an amount of blending that does need to go on, which is totally fine. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to this brush. And again, remember, between colors, wipe it off, and we're going to go back to this kind of purplish red that we started with. Now take that, and what you just did with Bisque, that same kind of movement over the black that you just put down. Now this color we are not taking all the way up along the cheekbone, we are just focusing this around the eye. And as I go, I kind of, if you feel the bone kind of right around the upper part of your cheekbone on the inner ridge here, the bottom part of your eye socket, that's kind of where I stay for this. All right, now I have a smaller brush. It's a little angle brush, and I'm going to use this purple, and I'm going to go right along the lower eyelid line again. Now we're going to move back to Bisque. And for this, we're going to take the bigger brush that we used for our very first color, get some Bisque on there, Bisque color, not real Bisque, don't put soup on your brush, and kind of around here on the bottom, go back over this color, but go along the bottom part here, so you blend that into more of your skin. And then there's some other stuff we're going to do to blend it, so fear not. And if you do get any spots, like right here, I've got some that's a little bit darker. I actually keep a, you'll see it has all sorts of stuff on it. I keep a makeup wipe that's dry nearby at my makeup station so that I can lick it and then wipe up any mistakes that I may need to, which, especially if you're drawing designs and things like that, like moons and stuff, and then go back over. And I find that is incredibly helpful. We've got this color coming down that kind of blends into a rosy color that's down on the cheeks, right? So what we're gonna do, you'll see I'm kind of blending this down a little bit with my finger here, or as I like to call it, nature's blender. Now what we're gonna do to help blend that a little bit more, back in this Beauty Glazed Perfect Mix, there is a color here called Umber, and it's this glittery neutral nude tone. So I'm going to take some of that actually on my finger, and I put it here underneath the eye area, kind of on the upper cheek here, and mix it in and blend where the bottom area of the bisque is, right? So what that does, it adds a little bit of color in there, but also adds the sparkle. Now there's one other thing we're going to do with this palette as well, and that is we have a color here called Blink, and that's this pink glitter color here. Now make sure your finger is clean or use a different one. Now we're going to take some Blink, again use a finger, and we're actually going to use up here to blend kind of the top end of the color on the temple. Now what this does is help these color zones blend in a little bit to where it's not quite as stark. Still very noticeable, but the lines aren't quite as harsh. So you can see the difference between this side and that side, right? So we're going to do the same thing to this side now. And it also adds in a little bit of sparkle, and who doesn't like that? All right, now that we have that, we are going to go ahead and enter the eyebrow. Now what I like to use for this, I like to do a lot of different things, but for a look like this, I'm going to use, it's another thing I got from an Ipsy bag. So it's the Rundown What's the Tea? And it's just a single color, but it's this little, it's fairly neutral, fairly nude, but it does have a little bit of a purple hue to it, which I find works well with the colors I use in my tone. So we're going to take our angled brush, get some on there, and so start with the thick inner part of the brow here. And I like to start at the inside part where you're not going to mess any shape up, and work your way toward the front. And for the inner part here, you don't want a harsh line. So kind of work your way in there. And then for this bottom part here, what I like to do is pull up. So kind of start where the brow starts and place the brush and pull up along the line of growth for the eyebrow. And then as you get further back, follow for the lower part of the eyebrow the shape of the arch all the way back. Now along the top, I start here, and my eyebrows do get, you'll see it's not, there's a little bit of a dip right there. So I actually, with this top line, I kind of just follow it back to make it nice and even. So you see how that, you can see the difference. And then we want to do the same thing for the other side. Again, this is another place where personally I have a little bit of trouble getting both sides even, but we'll see what happens. As with the eyes, my eyebrows are not totally even on both sides. Some of which is probably my own doing, but some of which is just the way growth happens, so. All right, so pretty good. So the next thing for the eyes is the last part of the highlight, and for that I use Pure Cosmetics, the Simply Shimmer Smoky Collection, and it's a fun palette as well, although as you can probably tell by looking, the thing I use the most is the white, and for that I actually use just the brush that they included, just the pointy part, and I take a little bit and I just run it along the very top edge just to make that highlight area pop. And I found that the white on this is just a really nice, I mean, it really jumps out at you. And I'm gonna put a little bit on the inner edge of the eye here as well. And one other thing I'm gonna do as well for today, I'm gonna take, and I'm actually gonna run a little bit of this white along the bottom edge of the wing here to make that stand out a little bit. Because a lot of times whenever you have eyeliner along so much color, it's easy for it to get lost in there. I don't really want that today. So we'll do that to the other side. All right, now if you are not feeling necessarily like a wild child, you do not necessarily have to pay attention to this next part, but you can come along for the journey anyway, or you can skip ahead. So next up, we are going to do the moon, for which so many of my looks have become known. So today we are going to, the cat is doing a thing. You can see him there. He's doing a thing. Today I'm actually going to start with Brave and Nude, which is again another find from Ipsy. It's pretty similar to the color that I used for my eyebrow, and for this I'm going to use just a really, so from the side, very fine point, but it does have a little bit of width to it. I'm going to get some on there, and I'm going to place it kind of not totally center here, a little bit above. And honestly, the best thing I can tell you about this is practice. Practice, and this is another area where having a wipe handy that you can clean up the edges and clean up mistakes and stuff like that is very, very useful. Yeah, I've been doing the moons for, I'll be honest with you, almost every day for about a year now or so. Probably about half of that where they have normally looked really, really horrific. So it definitely takes some time to figure out placement, shape, and things like that. And also the thing as well to note with them is that different materials that you use are going to be harder and or easier, right? Using a brush and shadow I find to be more forgiving, because I can almost draw it like I was drawing on paper with a pencil or something. Using liquid liner is much less forgiving because you put a line down and it is down. If you make a mistake, if you're shaky at all, liner don't care. Liner wants to show all of that. So that is something to be aware of. All right, so we have that now, and I am going to add a little bit of darker to the corners to help kind of emphasize those a little bit. And so for those, I am going to add a little bit of liquid liner, because also you can get a finer point with that, which is nice. Okay, so we have that nice little moon going on. And gonna want something a little bit more, a little more. So for that, I'm going to take my eyeliner pencil and going to add a little bit of a dot below, draw up and down until kind of a circle forms. I'm going to put another one underneath. All right, and then I'm actually going to use, I have, which I absolutely love, this Laura Geller After Midnight pencil, which is, it's a black glitter pencil, and it doesn't show up a lot of black, but it shows up a lot of glitter. So I normally will put down black first and then put it on top. So I'm going to do a bit of that, a bit of it to the moon as well. Now the other thing I'm going to add to the moon, because I just can't quit, I have this Too Faced Bulletproof Shadow Liner in Purple Rain. And I'm going to add a little bit of this to the bottom purple part of the moon, which it's also really nice, kind of glittery, colorful deal as well. All right, so I've got that going on. So now moving back to more of the normal-ish parts of the makeup. So now I'm going to add a little bit of contouring underneath the cheekbones. And so what I use for that is the Ofra, and it's actually a bronzer in Versatile Matte. I do not really bronze, but I found that I can use it really well for contouring. So I use this kind of a brush, which, so you'll see, thinner from one side, thicker on the other. It has a nice rounded tip, and the bristles come to a point, right? And so that works really well for coming down like this. So we'll do this and bring down from the cheek down in this direction. And you will want to, for yours, just kind of identify where feels right for you. But a quick hint is kind of right along the top of the ear line, coming down there. That's usually about where it'll be. So just pull down, pull down, pull down. And I like to blend down a little bit like this. I find that helps. So we'll do that. Down this way, down this way. And we already have a lot of color down here, so it's pretty good. Now I will add a little bit of highlighter. Even though we have some glitter on the cheeks, I'm gonna add some highlighter anyway. So I have just like a small blush brush, and for that I have Ofra Highlighter Rodeo Drive. Just get a little bit of that in there and go along the top part up along here of the cheekbone. And then I have a larger blush brush that I use for the regular blush. And for that, I've been using Chiate Date Night. And you can tell I've been using it a bunch. It's all worn out. It smells really nice though. It's like a mineral blush. So rub that on there. And for this, what I do is I actually kind of pull it along down just right above where I do the contouring. And I find that that helps kind of accentuate the structure that I want. So then, two more things. Next, I'm going to throw on some lashes. So I have here Pro Beauty Essentials 3D Foam Ink lashes. Now these, whenever you get a pair of lashes, you are going to want to make sure you trim them to your size. These were super, super long, so I did end up trimming them. And I use Ardell Lash Grip in black, because they do actually have colors now. Even the clear dries clear, so I'm not sure that it super matters, but I wear such dark makeup anyway that I guess I thought it was a good idea. So when I add this, I add just a very thin line of lash glue. Because I have found that if I add a thick line of lash glue, it goes everywhere, and I do not like that. So you're going to want to let it get a little bit tacky. And once the tack is tacky, and you don't want to let it get too dry or else it's not going to stick, you're going to then apply it. So I like to apply from the inside out, because I find that the inside is where I want it to be messed up the least. So I'll stick it on the inside, and then I'll kind of hold it down and then gently pull down along the top line of the lash, and then hold it, press down lightly. Long, long, glorious lashes. And these are actually a little bit further out than I do sometimes, but I find that sometimes having them too far in pokes the inside of my eye and becomes very uncomfortable. So you just want to play around with them and find the spot that feels most comfortable for you when you're wearing them. Yeah, because listen, nothing is gonna look good about lashes that are really uncomfortable. And a lot of times after I get them on, I take my pencil and just kind of color over any area that might have gotten messed up by me poking. And then do the same thing on the other side. All right, and then sometimes you get glue all up in your contact lens, which thankfully we live in an age when glue is safe. So moving on, one other thing that I do like to do for the face is we're going to go back to what we actually used for our eyebrows, and we're going to take this thin brush, the butt of the first brush we used, but also what we used for the dark purple, take a little bit of this, and we're actually going to do right over the top of the nose, right there. So a little bit. So see how that is? So I'm going to do a little bit of that. And if you were to ask me why I do it, I don't know that I could give you an honest answer. I started doing it, and honestly, I just like it. It's just kind of a design choice, and I think it's cute. Kind of gives a little bit of the anime button nose thing. So the other thing we're going to do now is we're not going to leave it just like this though. Right, and then I do have a little bit of powder that I use when I want to even a color out or blend it a little more into my own skin tone. And this is a Neutrogena Soft Beige number 50. It's Mineral Sheer Foundation Powder. And while it is a foundation powder, I don't normally use it for the full face, but I will use it if there's an area that I don't necessarily want to use a concealer on. You know, it might be, there's a bit of redness there, and you know, you don't want to use a concealer on a larger area. And this does have some really nice coverage though. So I will use it for something like that. Or if there's anything that I want to have a little bit of color, but also blend it out a little bit, I'll do that as well. Starting to blend in a little bit more. Because we don't want it like, boom, you know, it's not one of the lines across the upper bridge of the nose that sometimes I do as well. So now we're moving on to the last step, which is the lips. And for that, today we are going to be doing a little bit of a, not really pinkish, almost like a darker neutral. So what I'm using is NYX NYX. I'm still not sure how that's actually pronounced. It's a retractable lip liner in Sand Beige, and a color that I really like here, which is Anastasia, the company, and the color is, let's see, Veronica. And I found that these two actually go really well together. So let's jump on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and line these puppies. Now when I line my lips, I'll follow the natural lip line just a hair on the outside to kind of full them up just a little bit. And then also I'll lightly color inward just to softly blend it in. Now, I love this color. There is one thing about it though. If you put it on too thick, I've noticed that you can rub your finger and it will like crumple off. So what I found helps with that is I'll just apply it to the top and kind of press and get it on that way, because the thinner the layer, the more it actually stays on really well. So that's what you'll see me doing. All right, so that's pretty good on there. Right, so, and the other thing that is worth mentioning is that different colors are going to look different on different skin tones, but it's all worth playing with, right? So play with all of it. See what it looks like on you. Like this particular lip color in this particular style of, you know, may look slightly darker, lighter, colder, warmer, depending on what your skin tone is, but play with it. A lot of times when we're not in lockdown, I will pick up a lot of makeup from places like Marshall's and stuff like that, just because you can get decent brands for much cheaper. And in lots of things in various colors, to where if it's something that you don't end up liking, you cannot feel super bad that you spent a lot of money. But another good thing to do is if you go to a lot of nice makeup stores like Sephora and stuff like that, play with the testers. You know, you can see, oh, hey, what does this color of this particular lipstick look like on my skin? You know, and always use the little tester Q-tips and stuff like that. But then you can see actually what it looks like. You know, but as far as brand wise, I find that, you know, that you actually have to own to kind of get a sense of, does it stay on well? Does it come off well? Things like that. But this is what this look looks like. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. And yeah, if you end up doing this look or any part of it or any variation of, and again, like, feel free to take this in any direction. Do part of it, go off into whatever inspires you and stuff like that, but post it, tag me. I would love to see what you end up doing. That would be super cool. But hopefully this was helpful in some way or another. I would love to do more of these if anybody is interested. But yeah, thank you so much for checking it out, and hope you have a wonderful day, and stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and I will see you soon.